PharmaVentures, experts in deals and alliances.
Hello and welcome to PharmaVentures Insights here in Berlin. The majority of people think drugs are all about curing a disease and targeting a primary indication, but often they leave consequences for patients that actually need addressing too, and there are drugs and therapies around being developed for such situations. One company involved in that and other areas is GlyPharma, and joining me on the show today is Anjan Aralihalli, the Chief Business Officer of that company. Anjan, welcome.
Thank you, Adrian. Great to be here.
Yeah, glad to have you. And perhaps we can start off a little bit about GlyPharma and explain to people what the company is and the sort of assets you're working with.
Sure. So basically, it's a company based in Montreal, Quebec, Canada, and the peptide was licensed from Ferring in Switzerland, and it is a 33 amino acid peptide. It's a GLP-2 analog. So GLP-2, as you may know, is an endogenous hormone that we secrete after we eat. And it is secreted by the body to help with nutrient absorption as well as intestinal healing.
So you said its involvement in its natural form is?
Yes. So it's naturally secreted by the body after eating, as I mentioned. However, the half-life is only 7 minutes. And what Ferring has developed, along with ourselves, is a long-acting peptide. And so our half-life is about 30 hours, which allows for once weekly dosing, which we think will also be a great benefit for patients.
And what's the potential therapeutic benefit of using that in that setting?
So the primary indication is in something called short bowel syndrome. So what this is when a patient has effectively lost 2/3 of their bowel, it's been removed. And the causes could be various. It could range from severe Crohn's disease, where obviously they've had the bowel removed, to it could be something like a trauma, like a car accident, where again you've got damage and you've had bowel removed. But the ultimate consequence of this is that these patients have an enormous difficulty being able to absorb nutrients from the food that they've ingested. And so they often consume, maybe 4 to 5 times the number of calories that an average individual like you and I will consume. And so there are different groups. There's a milder group that still has oral nutritional supplementation. And then unfortunately they progress often to a much more severe condition, which is called TPN, or total parenteral nutrition, where they're effectively on IV nutrition, and this is really it's a poor quality of life. It's also very expensive. All this TPN nutrition is typically customized, and it's very expensive. They're somewhat glued to their IV in a sense, and even when they leave, unfortunately, these are patients that have to use the bathroom, restroom facilities fairly often, so upwards of 15 to 20 times a day. So you can imagine how tough a day getting out of the house can be for these patients.
So your treatment, if successful, would restore some degree of normality for these patients?
Absolutely. So what we're looking for is through the intestinal healing and the nutrient absorption properties of a GLP-2, it would allow these patients to either decrease the amount of TPN supplementation or remove it altogether, if possible, and reduce the amount of even oral supplementation, if possible, and improve their outcomes and quality of life. There's a lot of comorbidities that come along with the heavy TPN use. And so in our clinical trials, we're also going to be aiming to look for improvements in those comorbidities.
Right, so that's one area where it has utility. Are there others, or is this just a one treatment?
No, so beyond the milder patient population and the more severe patient population of SBS, which I should add is actually an orphan indication, and we will be applying for, in the process of applying for, an orphan drug designation. We are looking at a number of different other potential indications. So one is gastrointestinal mucositis. So this is a severe side effect of patients perhaps who have non-Hodgkin's lymphoma or multiple myeloma that are about to undergo hematopoietic stem cell transplantation. So you have the autologous group, which it's obviously their own stem cells, and an allogeneic, which is a much more compromised patient group, which is an external donor. And so during the conditioning process, prior to the stem cell transplantation, the patients suffer GI side effects that come along with the heavy radiation therapy and chemotherapy. And so this is what we're looking at is a supportive care treatment to help with the gastrointestinal healing that is needed in just prior to and sort of prophylactically and as well as just after the treatment to help reduce the signs and symptoms of the GI mucositis. We see this as a stepping stone to other indications, actually. So we really need the safety data in this patient group before we can advance to a much more compromised group, which is the allogeneic stem cell transplant group, as well as there is another indication that for now we're keeping under wraps, but let's just say it's a severe unmet need and it has an orphan drug potential, and we're running some preclinical animal model trials right now, and initial results are encouraging, so we're happy with that.
So you talked a little bit about what you're going to do in the clinic. Does that mean you're not yet at clinical stage of development? Whereabouts are you with the various indications?
So we actually completed a very robust phase 1A trial in healthy volunteers, over 60 patients, so a fairly large phase 1 trial. We had actually great PK and safety data, and we're now moving into the clinic. And so within a matter of just a couple of months, so let's say very early 2018, we will be starting 3 separate clinical trials, 1B, 2A. So they're proof of concept trials in short bowel syndrome with the oral patient population, short bowel syndrome, the total parenteral nutrition, as well as in GI mucositis in patients undergoing autologous hematopoietic stem cell transplantation.
What of the company beyond that? Will you look to partner out again each indication, or will you take it to market?
So no, the plan is once we have POC data that provided it's positive, of course, that we engage with a number of companies and ultimately can consummate a transaction. The company is effectively virtual. It's a lean operating model. And so we don't have any ambitions to bring this to market ourselves.
And then beyond this, will you bring in other molecules and look at other things you can do as a business to evolve your
Yes.
business?
So the venture capital fund behind GlyPharma, and one of the major shareholders is a venture fund in Montreal called CTI Life Sciences. We're one of the largest Canadian venture capital funds focused in life sciences. And so one of the models they do is they like to bring assets from pharma companies, for example, and create virtual companies around it in Montreal to take advantage of the various tax credits that I'd mentioned earlier, and then bring products to POC and then look to partner it out at that point. So we will ideally continue to do that with some other products.
Right, I think there's plenty of scope there. I think this is an area where I think that there should be more activity, because there are companies focused, like I said, on curing the patient, but there are consequences of that, and I think there are huge unmet needs in this, which hopefully you'll be successful in addressing.
Yes, we hope so too.
Well, thank you very much, Anjan, for joining us.
Thank you, Adrian. Take care.
For more information about PharmaVentures, visit our website